Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Steve Willis, co-founder of Hope Sheds Light. On behalf of my other partners and co-founders, Ron Rossetto and Arvo Prima, we welcome you to our family support meetings. It is a joy. You are an intrepid lot, I must say, coming out in this weather. We're grateful for that. And thank you to all of our friends on Facebook for joining us. Sorry about the last meeting. We didn't have Facebook going. I think they thought since I was speaking all the time, I'd break the camera or something. We're back. We're back at it. So for those of you that are joining us the first time, I'll tell you a little bit about Hope. We are a nonprofit. Our mission is to raise awareness and educate individuals and families in the community about the impact of addiction by having the courage to share our personal experiences, by offering wisdom and strength, and by providing hope and resources that lead to the long-term recovery of the entire family. So this is more than just the individual. This is like what happens to us, right? We need to get strong. That's what hope is. We want to do our part too to erase, get rid of the fear and stigma that surrounds this disease. There's a lot of it, right? There's embarrassment and all. And we try to do that through these meetings by providing a safe and hopeful and trusting environment that will allow families to heal and lead to the wellness of the whole community. And it's working. I know it is. So our family support meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday of every month in this beautiful Holy Cross Lutheran Church in Toms River. If you're watching this for the first time or for the umpteenth time, come and join us, because we get bigger and bigger and it's fun. What we're trying to show you is that you're not alone, right? If you're impacted by this disease, and we welcome anybody that is impacted or anybody that wants to learn more, but it's important to know that you're not alone with this because there's support. There's a loving environment here that will help lift you up and provide actually an educational plan to help everybody get well. Our hope really is that if by us sharing with you and you with us, you'll change the way you look and think about addiction and therefore become healthy. So thanks for joining us again. The first part of the meeting is an educational part. We have brilliant colleagues that join us to share their take, Susan tonight, to share their experiences and their knowledge about prevention, treatment, recovery. Tonight it's a personal journey, as I shared mine the last time, okay? So that's about 45 minutes or so, an hour. We're going to open it up to discussion. Then we break out into groups. Now normally we have some smaller groups, but we did something a couple weeks ago that was fun. We stayed right here. Did you like that, those of you that were here?
Yes.
I kind of liked it, so that's what we're going to do since I've got the microphone. Okay? That'll be fun. And what we do then is to talk about what we've heard. Talk about what's on your heart, okay? And to help you understand that being healthy is important. And we'll talk about what that looks like, okay? So with that, again, thank you. Let me introduce our speaker for tonight, Susan. Susan Desch, a woman in recovery, a volunteer. Volunteer, Hope Shed Light, and owner of a sober living establishment. We're very grateful that she's here. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Hi, I'm Susan Desch, and I'm a woman in long-term recovery, and what that means for me is that I haven't had a drink or drug in 4 years, in spite of multiple relapses. So I get to be the addict and the alcoholic, and I also get to be on the other side. Coincidentally, I'm also a counselor, and I own a sober home. I actually, when I relapsed the last time, I served time in jail with my former clients, so that was humbling. Yes, I know, right? Right. So, but a lot of the reason why we relapse is because of self-defeating behaviors and self-sabotage. I will tell you too, I'm also a cancer survivor. 2 years ago this October, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and for those of you who know me, I was bald about 1.5 years ago, and so I've overcome that too. And I mention that because it plays into the things that we learn about recovery. Before we start, I just want to cover some terms. Your qualifier is the person who has you here. So for those of you who love or care for or parent an addict or an alcoholic, your qualifier would be that person, okay? Codependent enabler, you guys know what that is, right? Sometimes we enable our loved ones to death. We don't know how to set boundaries. We think that we can fix them. And so in my recovery journey as an addict and an alcoholic, and also as a counselor and someone who used to enable people, I have a recovery journey as well. So just so you know, we'll talk about that later. The addict, alcoholic, just know I'm an addict. I own that. So if I say that, if it offends anybody, call your sponsor and get over it. And God or higher power. When I talk about spirituality, don't mistake it for religiosity. And those of us who have been in recovery, so don't get up in a bunch about it. God, higher power. Some people have found Buddhism, Taoism, nature, science. So I don't want you to get distracted by these terms. So it doesn't dilute the message that you're going to hear today. So, all right. And I've done this lecture multiple times, but I've never done it with also the families of. I've always done it geared specifically toward clients at the rehabs where I've worked. So bear with me. I'm a little nervous. If I don't throw up on YouTube in the first 5 minutes, I'll be good. Okay. But I always put that out there because, I'm human. And if I own that, then, I'll be more comfortable. So who can define for me self-sabotage or self-defeating behaviors? Bueller. Thank you, Ed.
When you get everything right in your life and then you just destroy it. That's what I do.
Real quick, who are my addicts in recovery? Okay, got a good turn. Who are my enabler codependents? And who are both? Okay, good, okay. So, what else? That's a good beginning definition. Go ahead.
Continued patterns.
Continued patterns. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep screwing up my own recovery? Why do I keep enabling my son? What else? Is this thing on? Behavior is said to be self-sabotaging when it creates problems and interferes with long-standing goals. And for the addict and the alcoholic and the enablers, it doesn't have to be long-term. It could be daily. Like if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I'm not eating properly, if I'm not doing radical self-care, I am destined to be irritable, discontent, and enable or try to just, appease my addict who is begging me for money, and that ultimately leads to wrong decisions. And then the definition of self-defeating is an action or behavior that sabotages the thing that you are trying to accomplish. So for the enabler, an example would be when you want to come across as mature and nurturing, and you come across as with name calling or smothering, what can I do to help? We've all had that parent or that loved one, So, just to define that as we move forward. So, self-sabotage can lead you to relapse mode. And I'd like to do a quick little chart here. And inevitably, this will fall because this is the only thing that we found that would fit. So, the Gorski is a well-known psychologist, and he came up with a couple great things. The Gorski model on relapse mode is this. So when we come into recovery as recovering addicts, or also the enablers, the loved ones, we're like a roller coaster. This is an emotional, physical, mental, spiritual disease. So we come in and we hope that you get to the point where you're like a lasagna noodle. Because when I'm like a lasagna noodle and I'm stabilized on meds or eating properly, engaging in clean and sober behaviors, picking up new hobbies, calling my sponsor, working my 12 steps in Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, or A or NA, then things are going along and I can handle life on life's terms. So long before we pick up, we have thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. So this is relapse mode. How long can relapse mode last? Anyone? Months? Years. I could have been in relapse mode 7 times today already. And only I have the power to go back. And the reason why I'm showing you this really quickly is so at any given time, as the addict or as the enabler, I can call my sponsor, I can pray, I can meditate, I can make sure I'm getting enough sleep, I can listen to music, I can journal, I can look back at my steps, and I have the power to get back to, recovery mode long before I pick up. So when you start, a lot of the questions are like, why do I keep doing the same thing? Why do I keep screwing up? Why do I keep choosing the most unhealthy man out there? be at AA meetings and like if you had anger issues and you were cursing, I'd be like, call me if you're unemployed too. You know, and I always look for the toxic relationships, right? Because I'm a mess. So, but having said that, keep that in mind for relapse mode. Let's talk about my addicts, and this I want to do this little part so the addicts can start to identify with what we enablers go through, and so the enablers can start to identify with what we addicts think, because both groups our thinking is broken, our perception is broken, it's really screwed up. And there's a funny saying, you know, we addicts and alcoholics are sick, but the people who love us, I mean, they are fine, right? Am I right? Can anyone identify? All right. So, for my addicts, I'm going to ask you guys to participate. You might have self-defeating behaviors if you can identify with any of this, please put your hands up. Honesty is difficult for you and you tend to exaggerate things. Any of my recovering people identify with that, right? And those of you who aren't raising your hands are liars. Okay. Just put that out there. Let's see. You're right on the brink of success. This is like what you said, Ed. And then something happens to screw it all up. How many people in recovery have done that? You're right there. You got a healthy, yeah. Thank you, Kyle, for throwing that. You know, you're maybe in a healthy relationship. You have a job, but you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You do something that sabotages your success. You know, you set goals but never achieve them. Okay. You don't be shameful, girl. Put your hand up. It's that everyone in this room can identify with what you're feeling. You know, that's why I'm putting this part of the lecture out there so you know that you're not alone, right? And maybe some of the enablers can identify with this too. All right, how about you feel superior or inferior to everybody else? It's not just Ed, right? Right? I feel less than, I feel apart from. But on the outside, and you've seen these guys and gals, they come in, they're strutting their peacock feathers, right? They got the girl, the car, and they're dying inside. And something that's really common that we say in the 12-step meetings is, you know, I was a raging egomaniac with an inferiority complex. You know, see it's on the outside, you know, everything's good, everything looks good. And this is for you enablers too. The family looks good, everything's fine, it's really fine. Look how nice our Christmas cards are, and it's a disaster, right? Can any of the enablers identify with that? Good. All right, let's see. What else? Oops. You have unrealistic expectations. So I get out of rehab, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to get the girl or the guy, I'm going to go to 40 meetings a week, I'm going to work 60 hours, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. So I set these unrealistic expectations, and that's why we try to emphasize, like, you know, prioritize, do an ABC goal. And if you achieve those three, that's good. If all you do when you get out of treatment is put your head on the pillow and not use that day, that's a miracle. And I say that for the loved ones of the addicts. It's like, you know, be gentle with yourself, but be gentle with your addict, with your qualifier. You worry too much and have a great deal of anxiety. No, right? Who suffers from that? I mean, the enablers too, right? Okay. And that's one of the signs that might tell yourself, I need to maybe call my, I know, come on. But I need to call my sponsor, I need to take a step back and make sure, you know, lessen some of my responsibilities, because I'm just, you know, that's a good warning sign. Who's a big procrastinator? Yeah. And actually, procrastination is a form of manipulation. Yes, thank you, James. And how about this one? Who's heard this before? You're not living up to your potential. How many people have heard that who are in recovery? Yeah. Yeah. I'll show you, I'll go use. Right? All right. And you often belittle yourself and those around you. So I was raised in a household where I was told and I believed, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not thin enough, I'll never amount to anything. And I believe that. And so for a lot of us who come from either broken homes or maybe not even a home, maybe raised in and out of foster care or institutions, for some of us, parents have shot them up with dope for their first time or prostituted them out. So how are we going to develop coping skills? How are we going to not fall back into the self-defeating behaviors? So if you can identify it with any of these, then I encourage you to be willing to take a look at what you can do. So let's talk about for the addict what it looks like. For the enablers, you might have self-defeating behaviors or self-sabotage if I try to control my qualifier. So who are my enablers who try to control their loved one who is addicted? That's it. I was waiting for you three. And you. How about we're trying to change our qualifier, or change the circumstances, or the household, or the rules, or my schedule to make sure I can accommodate them, right? Everyone identify with that, my enablers? If I'm caretaking too much, if I'm trying to rescue them, if I am that person who's like, oh, thank you. If, everything's not fine, but if we're dressed nicely, nice cars, everything's fine, right? Yeah, no, it's a lie. So if it looks good on the outside, it must be good on the inside. How about excessive worry and preoccupation with our addicted loved ones? Whether they're on the streets or in recovery. They're going along in recovery, and I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit later, how we can change that in our thinking. Because there's only one thing that we have to change to stop doing this, and that's everything. Too much. Blaming yourself. Who are my enablers who blame themselves? If only I were a better parent. If only I had done this. If only I had not worked and I had stayed at home and I was there. Anybody else blame themselves? Yeah. Oh, I saw the hand go up. Thank you. And then how does it show itself? How does it, there are physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional manifestations in this. So it might show up in increased anger for my enablers, and actually for the addict too, but with the enablers, increased frustration, increased stress and anxiety, a total feeling of loss of powerlessness. Right? Anyone identifying with this? Yeah. Well, feeling trapped, loss of sleep, appetite fluctuating. I want to eat everything in sight. I don't want to eat anything at all. Yeah. What else? Fearful. So there's all these signs physically that I got to do something about this. So let me go here. Bear with me again. All right, so in order for me to avoid the self-defeating behaviors, and that's for both the addicts and the enablers, I have to work on my spirituality, my spiritual fitness on a daily basis. And again, don't get that mixed up with religiosity. So what does that look like? It's a threefold disease, but it's emotional, it's mental, it's physical, it's spiritual, it's financial. So I have to do something positive to keep myself fit that day, so no matter what comes my way, it's not going to trip me up. You guys identify with that? So there's something here I just wanted to read real quick. An interesting thing about self-sabotage is that it's not a lack of knowledge, effort, or even desire that keeps you from achieving your goals and outcomes. Rather, it's the committee in my head or my own inner self-dialogue that confuses the issue. I don't know if I can say mental masturbation on Facebook. Can I say that? Okay. So it's the mental masturbation in my head. It's that committee in my head. The old tapes playing. You're not good enough. You're just going to fail anyway. You've been to how many rehabs? You're going to do it again. I tried to rescue my kid before, and I know him. I know his patterns. I know he's just going to screw up. So those are lies, and like I said, we have to change everything. So now that I've told you all of the, some of the signs and the lovely manifestations of it, I don't want you to come to this kind of a lecture and then not have solutions. So this is, so what do we do? Why do I keep engaging in this negative self-behavior? How do I stop it? Does anyone want to share anything at this point before we talk about the solutions and how I can stop that self-defeating behavior, or actions, or thoughts? Anybody want to share anything? Go ahead.
I do affirmations every morning. I do positive affirmations for even just one chapter of the book before I start my day, and I walk miles.
Okay.
And healthy eating.
So I'm hearing that you work really hard on keeping
I'm aware
spiritual
of my
fitness,
self-talk.
your emotional, yeah, and
Right.
that's number one. So,
Yeah.
but you're owning it, and
But
you make a decision on it.
Work it every day, all day long.
Yeah, it's like a muscle. Like your brain is a muscle, your spirituality is a muscle. I mean, it needs work like a muscle. If I was going to run a marathon, I couldn't run a mile tomorrow and then do 26 miles on Thursday. I would die. Unless I don't like running anyway. So I have to do this on a daily basis, and that's what we're going to talk about too, about going to meetings. And this is for the addicts and for the enablers, because the enablers can work a program of recovery. Who are my enablers in here who attend Naranon or Al-Anon and have sponsors? Oh yeah? And how's it working? Okay, and I might solicit some input from you later, because that's important. Okay, so self-sabotage and recovery, how to overcome it. So you mentioned, what's your name?
Susan.
Susan, oh my God, it's not anything. Negative self-talk. Self-talk. And you have the qualifier, you're not the addict.
I did it in recovery myself.
Oh, okay.
And my son is in recovery.
Okay. So what are some of the things your disease tells
I'm
you?
not good enough, that I can't do it, that I'm not, maybe, that I'm fat, you know, yeah, all those things. But I try not to be controlling. So I read to let go and just start my day off really good.
Good, and I
I'm
admire
worthy
that.
of these things.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great that you have that every single day, setting you up for success. So how about I don't deserve this, I'm not good enough, I'll never amount to anything. I was told I would never amount to anything. Boy, did I prove them wrong after failing multiple times.
Body
and crashing and burning.
issues. Right.
Oh yeah, body dysmorphia, yeah. Now for the addict, what kind of things, people in recovery, what's some of you, go ahead, negative self-talk.
Negative self-talk. Yeah.
Or what do you do, okay, if you were gonna talk about a positive, what do you do?
Oh, for self-defeating,
Yeah,
self-sabotage.
whatever you're gonna raise your hand.
For something that helps me, well, it's funny, I identify, as you were describing it, with both an addict, but as someone that grew up with a parent that was an alcoholic.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't identify until you were saying that, so I identify with both sides. But something that helps me with self-sabotage is like catching it before it starts, like, oh, here it comes, like those feelings, like noticing it and catching it sometimes helps me before I go down that like rabbit hole.
I'm so glad you said it, and that exactly speaks to the Korsky model that I was talking about. So I'll have the thoughts, I might get the feelings, and then before I act out, like give the little old lady a finger on the parkway, you know, go back to shoplifting because it seemed like a good idea at the time, or go to AC if I'm a gambler. You catch yourself beforehand. And what might you do as a person in recovery or an enabler to stop that thinking? What are some of the tools? And that's what I want. That's what I want you to leave with today. What are my tools to stop the madness? To stop my
For
negative.
me personally, prayer.
Okay. Prayer. Even as simply as the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
You know, the short version of the Serenity Prayer. You know what it is? It's whatever. You know, calling our sponsors, getting to a meeting, prayer. What have you got?
There was 3 words.
And speak up for.
There was 3 words that I learned in my church years ago. I had Novocaine, so I'm out
Okay.
for it. It's what she just said, identify, locate, and eradicate. So identify what it is, locate where it's coming from, and get rid of it.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? Yeah. And your internal barometer will tell you when it's getting funky, right? We know when I know, I'll keep it on me. I know when I'm headed toward that and the discomfort of that. Kind of.
Like change your daily routine. Change your daily routine if you're like doing the same things and you feel like you're setting yourself up.
Yeah.
Try to change it.
How about how many addicts when we come out of treatment have a routine or schedule at all? Never. So for some of us, we have to come up with a routine, and that's why I didn't make a move without calling my sponsor in early recovery. I'd have to sift out, as smart as I thought I was, I had to sift everything through her because my thinking and my perception was broken. So a daily routine, that's good. So all right. So for the negative self-talk, the enabler can sound like, oh, they'll probably just fail again. Oh, this always happens. He gets a job. He gets a girlfriend, which we shouldn't do in the first year if it's a new relationship. That's just a suggestion. And then then the shit hits the fan. Oh, he gets complacent. He gets comfortable. He stops going to meetings. So, and that's where if I start thinking of that as the enabler and the codependent, I need to get to a group like this. I need to get to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon or call my sponsor. And there's so many support groups out there. You can call the Hope Sheds Light number or Google it, and you can get referred to multiple places where you can get extra counseling, extra support. Okay. So the next one, self-pity. So of my enablers, of my codependents, can you give an example of your self-pity?
God, I'm going to have to live with this the rest of my life, and I don't know how much I have left, and I don't want to deal with it.
Wow.
for me, my qualifier is my ex-wife. I used to think that no one else is gonna love me.
Yeah. Thank you for your candor on that. So that's self-pitying, that I'm a victim, the wah-wahs. But if you find that when you come to a group like this, some of you right now might be thinking, oh, I can identify with what he shared. I know exactly what she's talking about, but I've never spoken about that, because I was always told stuff my feelings and don't share about it. But you come in here and you can inevitably, somebody in the room or multiple people in the room will have gone through what you've gone through. And by their experiences, it can give you hope. We can give you suggestions so you don't repeat that. What does self-pity look like for the addict? Go ahead.
Self-pity for me was actually a form of manipulation for others.
Do you want to explain that?
Well, I would feel sorry for myself and voice my sorriness. And in return, people would feel sorry for me and want to help me, and I would feed off of that. And I realized that it got me what I wanted. Yeah. So for me as an addict, I had to stop feeling sorry for myself. And I hate to say it like this, maybe I don't know if it's right or wrong, but it works for me because it keeps me from stopping feeling sorry for myself. But like, I have to remind myself that I'm a grown-up, excuse my mouth, I'm a grown girl, and nobody's gonna take care of me but me, and how dare I allow anybody to feed my own problems.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, self-pity can go either way. You can be feeling sorry for yourself, but it'll also be a form of manipulation.
Yeah. A wise man has said to me multiple times, I am 100% responsible for 100% of my decisions 100% of the time. So if I'm sitting in probation and doing the police, the judge, my PO,
Own it.
yeah.
Own it.
It has nothing to do with them.
No.
And if I did something in a blackout or a brownout and I don't remember, I'm still responsible. I am 100% responsible all the time. Right? And playing that victim role, what's the payoff to that? Well, some people can use to play upon the sympathies of another unhealthy individual. Attract the men or women who are equally sick and unhealthy. I feel so bad for you, let me rescue you. Let me lose myself in caring for you. What else? Self-pity for any of the recovering addicts. Okay, thanks.
I get very selfish with my thinking. I think that life is always out to get me.
Life what?
Life is always out to get me. When something bad would happen, I thought, oh, this is happening to me. It wasn't, something just bad happening. I would make it personal to me.
Yeah.
And I felt like everyone was always after me, and I just didn't think that I deserved anything better than that. And that was normal for me after for thinking that way for so long. Self-pity was kind of normalness. So
yeah, to wallow in that problem instead of heading toward a solution.
Yeah, learning to lift myself up was hard. And now that I've been doing that for so long, like she said, I can catch myself when I start thinking like that.
Good. And
I do things to kind of get outside of myself.
Yeah, my dad used to tell me, nobody said life is going to be fair, Sue. So I was 7. But the world's not out together. I am responsible. There's no such thing as Murphy's Law. But behind that is incredibly low self-esteem. And a lot of us have abuse in our history, trauma, grief and loss, just feel abandonment, like if you're adopted or if you've been in and out of foster care. So a lot of it speaks to our low self-esteem. And, hopefully, after 10 years leaving, you are good enough for good things to happen. I can control my own destiny, And if you bring up a good point, too, this is a selfish problem, but it's a selfless problem. This is a me program, but it's a we program. And the paradoxes or seeming contradictions are a little baffling at first, but it's both. How do I win? I win by surrendering. How do I hold on? I hold on by letting go. And I think everyone is, when they go through their 12-step process, you identify with that. Yeah. We'll be able to understand that. Yes.
So go back to your neighborhood for a minute.
Okay.
And I'm one that's been in the rooms and gone through about 12 years of heroin addiction with 3 kids.
Woo.
And so, a lot of power comes from these rooms, but I didn't realize, disconnecting from the meetings, that I'm okay with everything that you said until it comes to now children of the addicts, who I'm now watching one relapse and there's 2 babies involved. So it's kind of hard to say, what do you do with you know, now two very young children that are in the presence of what's going on, you know, and, you know, it's like, you're walking a tightrope.
Catch
Yeah.
22.
Yeah, you're either way you go, and they're grandchildren, they're blood grandchildren, so, you know, I'm trying to reach out in that department, because for me, I've kind of been through everything that you said here, and got a lot of help from, you know, faith and God, and yeah, I disconnected for what, about 4 years now that I've been going, and, I thought we were over it, but, you know, you just don't know. Yeah, surprise, rears its ugly head. And you don't, with the babies, you just don't know what to do.
Well, the first thing you do is do what you just did now. Let's give him a round of applause. You don't know most of these people, and you took a risk by sharing that. And you also now gave permission for other people to share about what they're going on. And how many people can identify with what he talked about? And there's a lot more. I've heard a lot of you share in groups over the last 2 years. So I would encourage you to go to Al-Anon, go to Nar-Anon, come to Hope Sheds Light, keep talking about it, get a sponsor. And you know what? I have to set boundaries. Sometimes if I have to call DIFUS on a family member, you know, it's people think, oh, I'd never do that. It's supposed to be scary. If it was easy, everyone would do it. If it's uncomfortable, it's probably recovery. But I guarantee you that you'll get great suggestions from the people with whom you share in the rooms about
Yeah,
that.
I'm still friends with my sponsors, so it's not like
Good.
I'm disconnected from that.
Yeah, but you can start attending, attending this group more, but also go, you know, I'm an addict and alcoholic. My primary relationship is with me. So I go to Al-Anon to also like deal with me, because I'm crazy, right? So that's what someone told me early on, and I held on to that. So keep going, sharing about that. All right, and then call Steve. Instead of taking responsibility, self-pity becomes a way to justify, blame others, refuse to take positive action, and it can jeopardize our recovery. Not only those of us who love alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, steroids, the criminal lifestyle, because I don't want to not mention those, double negative intended, because eating, not eating, you know, working out all the time, so you're isolating all the time and never going out of the house. So we can take anything to an addictive, unhealthy level. And that's why it's so important to come here and talk about it. So, all right, so how about this one? Can anyone identify with those of you who are the enablers or the addicts? Isolation. Anybody?
Yeah.
Only an addict or alcoholic thinks that isolating is a cure for depression, right? I heard that. That's not a Susanism. So who wants to speak on isolation? Whether from which point of view, the addict or the enabler? And then I'll get you.
Well, the enabler, you don't want to kind of stop hanging out with friends who have the perfect families and are not going through, you know, what you're going through, because it's just too hard. So you kind of pull away from them.
When it comes right down to it, does anyone have the perfect family?
Nope.
There's something going on, you know. Best Christmas. We always had the best Christmas cards and you know, nice houses and everything, but what was going on behind the scenes was not miserable. But I get that, you know, the mom's like, I'm fine, everything's fine.
And when you think they're fine, you think it's you, and it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you come here and you talk about it, and like 7 people are like, oh, I feel that way too. I'm gonna get with her after the meeting. And I know you do work a program, so that's good. What did you have, young lady?
I grew up in an abusive relationship, in an abusive home. And now, as my son is an addict, now I feel like it's been flipped and I'm getting it the other way. Because he doesn't know how to control the ups and downs that you were talking about. And I call him out, and I'm wrong for that too. I don't know how to find the happy medium.
Who's been doing this for a while, and the codependence and the Al-Anon meetings?
It's like a balance.
Who can offer her something? A suggestion? Okay. So we have the ill-equipped parents, ill-equipped raising the ill-equipped. So you didn't develop the coping skills to not get in abusive relationships yourself, maybe. Anyone identify with that? Always going for the abusive person because a healthy relationship wasn't role model. So I'm setting myself up for failure by hooking up with that really sick man. But then your son, you know.
Now I've gone into the other direction,
Yeah.
and my son has flipped it again.
Mhm.
I felt like I found that place, but now my son's flipped it again. It's like, oh my God, I can't go down there.
Yeah. So I would encourage Al-Anon, Nar-Anon, call the Hope Sheds Light, get to these meetings more, because we have to change. It's all about changing you. Do you think that you can change him?
No, I've tried.
No.
It doesn't
No.
work.
Yeah, we can't change anything. What do we have control over?
Ourselves.
Ourselves and our reactions to things. So if he starts to learn that you know, if you bring up this stuff and he comes at you and you just kind of diffuse it by walking away and you don't feed into it, and then you call your sponsor, oh my God, I'm freaking out.
And that's how I isolate myself. I don't have anyone.
So it's, remember that Seinfeld episode where George Costanza did the opposite of everything? So that's where I encourage you, I don't feel like calling my sponsor, pick up that phone. I don't feel like getting to a meeting today. I don't want to go to Hope Sheds Light. I'm good, I'm fine. Get to the meeting. I want to share, but I think I'll be good. I'm gonna share. Put your hand up. Go against everything that is in your natural decision making. Go against that. So it's about changing everything. Do you have a sponsor in Al-Anon yet?
This is the first.
I guess so she
step.
reads the Nar-Anon book
Okay.
This is
for
the
her
first step.
every
and the
day.
first meeting I could even.
Awesome. I can, woo! What's your name? Huh?
Victoria.
Victoria, welcome. Oh man, strap yourself in, girl. There's an exciting journey ahead. It's not always fun and comfortable, and it's not all rainbows and daisies, but who can give her hope that, you go through the struggles and this gets better.
Keep
All
coming.
right? Yeah,
coming.
keep coming back. So look, this guy who just learned something actually maybe just gave you a little glimmer of hope. Yeah, I'm really proud of you. Thank you for putting that out there. Yeah. Isolation, who else can speak on that? So, isolation fuels loneliness and depression, right? It increases the likelihood of a return to addictive thinking and behavior. And the antidote is within your control. Going back to that relapse mode, I can call my sponsor, whether it's Al-Anon, Nar-Anon. What you got?
I'm an addict. I was gonna say, like, my mind told me that I was so into my self-pity, and I was just in such a low point that I didn't feel like I deserved to be around people. I felt like I would just bring them down. I was already enough for myself to handle, so I would just keep myself away from everyone else. I would isolate because I felt like I was a burden to people around me, and I didn't want to mess up their life, messing up my own. So I just kind of kept my own little miserable world.
What's your name?
Erica.
Aaron?
Erica.
Yes. Lies. Those are lies. And those are the old tapes. Mine were, you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, you're not around to anything, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of getting help. I actually, the first time I went to rehab, I was really nervous about getting shot down, and I really thought, maybe I'm not sick enough, maybe I'm not an alcoholic enough, and I worked on how I was going to sell it, that I'm a sick puppy and I need to be here. You are worth it. You are lovable enough, you're a miracle, you deserve validation, you deserve to love yourself, you are important, what you have to say is important, and it's true. And the more we stick around, the more we believe that. And I can identify so much with that. I had no self-esteem for years and years. One day, I was at the Women's Center for Abuse getting counseling for a battered relationship, and she said to me, she goes, you have a powerful message. You're going to help women one day. And I immediately said, no, I'm not. I'm a piece of shit, and blah, 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 blah. And years later, when I sit down with a client or a patient, and it's a woman going through the same thing, and I attribute it to taking all the suggestions, having a great relationship with my higher power, working the program, and God spared me so I can give this message of hope to you. And then one day you're going to give that. Do you believe that yet? No, I'm not going to.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you will. And thank you. That's very vulnerable. Thank you for putting that out there. Have you guys heard of HOW, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness? Mm-hmm. Key things in recovery, whether you're the addict or the codependent. So thank you for putting that out there, Erica. Let me see. And we have to get involved in meetings, sponsor support groups, reading. Melody Beattie is a great author for, woo, woo, shout out to Melody. Yeah, that's a great book on codependency, yeah. And there's CODA meetings too, CODA, right? Codependence Anonymous. Awesome. So, but it's also important to find recreational activities that I get joy from. Riding my bike, walking, and like you do. Reading the daily affirmations. Maybe going back to writing some music or writing lyrics. Jogging, walking on the beach. Good. All right. So how about stress? What are we doing with time here? I think both the enablers, the codependents, and the addicts can identify with stress. So we can't block them all. But it all goes back to how spiritually fit am I today? So, today's the 17th anniversary of the Twin Towers attack. And in earlier recovery, I used to say, I can get through anything. And I would say, I got through 9/11. I subsequently relapsed multiple times after that. But I got through 9/11. And if I'm spiritually fit, I can get through that. If I'm spiritually fit, I can step in a dog pee and be okay with that. Because whether it's something as small as that, can't identify, freak out. No matter what goes on in my life, and that's where I'm not the roller coaster anymore. I'm the lasagna noodle, and so whatever comes my way, a child with leukemia, getting the breast cancer diagnosis, hearing that one of my friends or a former client relapsed and died this time, but I can handle anything based on my spiritual fitness for that day. So when stressors come your way, earth people, those are people who are not blessed with the disease of addiction, earth people can just go about it, right? But we act out, we go to Atlantic City, we smoke something, drink something, I can't say and act out. We have to learn how to channel it to healthy coping skills and get through the stress, right? And that's for both of us. And if you take on too much too soon or refuse to say when you're overextended, you make yourself more vulnerable, right? And that's with everybody. And boredom. Who mistakes balance for boredom? So I get out of rehab, there's all of a sudden there's the absence of chaos. Or my loved one goes to rehab and all of a sudden there's the absence of chaos because they're finally, they're in jail again, thank God, they're safe. And I don't have to worry about it, seriously. Or they're in rehab again, or they're in an Oxford house or a sober living house, they're working a program of recovery. And who can identify with the fact that things are going along smoothly is very stressful. Yeah. Can you share about it a little bit?
My son, he was on the street for a long time, and now he just detoxed himself in a hotel room, which I never thought he could do. Yeah. And he went back to the program, and now I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get that call tomorrow that because last time he left within 2 days. So I'm like, okay, I'm really like happy that he's there. Like I want to have a good time and enjoy myself, but then there's always like, oh my God, he's gonna call, the phone's gonna ring, he's gonna be on the street. So yeah, there's fear in what he's doing. Like when I think he's doing good, I'm still scared. So I'm trying to work on myself.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about. It's not only self-defeating behaviors, but self-defeating thoughts. And before they become action or feelings and then actions, that's where I have to recognize it. We've dealt with a lot of people who come into family education over at Discovery Institute. They're like, and they share like, oh God, I'm so relieved my son's in jail. And other people are like, what? What are you talking? You're a terrible parent. But how many times are we waiting for the 2 cops to show up at our door in the middle of the night, or waiting for that phone call? And finally, when and granted, they can get drugs and alcohol in jail or rehab, but it's much more difficult. We finally have peace, and that's okay to enjoy that peace. But I remember in early recovery, being sober, I had kicked my abusive husband out on a restraining order. I was working a program, and I remember being in the condo and like wringing my hands, like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. I called my sponsor because of course I'm thinking, Susan can fix this, I don't have to ask for help, which is a lie. And I called her, she's like, Susan, you're not comfortable with, this is, I think I'm bored, you're not comfortable with balance. There's the absence of chaos in your life. It's really uncomfortable. The absence of drama. For some of the loved ones, when the addict or alcoholic comes back from treatment, there's a payoff for you to keeping your loved ones sick. I don't have to focus on me. I can focus all my attention on my qualifier. Right? So there's a payoff. And that's why it's so important. This is a family disease. Oh, you guys can identify mother-daughter, right? This is a family disease. It affects everybody. And that's why it's really important for the people who aren't addicted, who love someone who is addicted or alcoholic, to take care of themselves first. Radical self-care. And you've heard that I gotta put the oxygen mask on me before I put it on my kids, or I'm not gonna be good for anything. So, what you got there?
My mom used to tell me all the time, like, how I could sleep when I got locked up.
Yeah.
Now she can have a good night's sleep.
Who can identify with that? Yeah. Yeah. And so, see, and look, we're talking about it, Victoria, and it sounds crazy. I mean, that sounds insane. But yet we can identify it. You know, these crazy people who feel comfortable.
Time I can actually sleep soundly and feel.
Yeah.
I can get up in the morning and have hope.
Right. Have you been to Al-Anon or Nar-Anon yet either, or is this your first Hope Should Light?
My first year.
Oh my God. Yeah, so I would, the ladies who are here, please, you know, converge upon Victoria in a gentle way, in a non-threatening way. You know, give your phone number, but I'm really proud of you. And it's exciting when new people come in the room, right? It's like, what's all this lingo? And if I'm saying terms that are foreign to you, you'll get used to it. You're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. I promise you that. Let me just see if there's anything else here. All right. So it's important to find healthy outlets and things to do, because a lot of the clients, a lot of the addicted ones are engaged in high-risk behaviors, and unless they're speeding down the parkway on 100 miles on their motorcycle or shoplifting or using, a lot of them are really concerned with it being balanced and bored, and so that's why you're powerless over them, but it would be important for them to get involved with their sponsor, get involved with maybe commitments, helping others, and then healthy things to keep them busy when they're not doing the 12-step recovery stuff. There's an African proverb, and it says, when there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. Right? When there are no enemies within, the enemies outside can hurt you. And the enemies outside can be a bad day, the threat of drugs and alcohol. It can be my own self-deprecating thoughts. It's fooling myself into thinking that I can control or change or cure my addict. Right? So what questions do you have? If I have an answer to, I will try to. And then we will break into the discussion. I think I covered everything. What have we got? Anyone? Yes.
So I'm not really sure, I'm Jamie, I'm not really sure where my thought process falls in. I'm not sure if it's boredom or if it's stress. Like I was at work today, it was an easy day, and I had like a thought about you, and then I was driving here, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to call my sponsor. Like I'm just gonna listen to music. Like I'm fine. It was just a thought. Like I know it's gonna pass. Like I'm not gonna act on it, so I really don't need to talk about it. Like I'm fine.
Lies.
I know. It's like all there anyway. And I
Yes.
talk to her, but like I don't know where it came from. Like I was alright. I'm gonna say it's the weather. That's where I'm gonna pinpoint it.
And that could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, 'cause it's kind of been like a little choppy out for the last few days, and like I'm over it. And I'm not stressed out, but I'm starting to feel, I don't know. But my thoughts didn't come at me in like a negative way. It's just like, wow, today would be a nice day to like, just go and use.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like that came out of nowhere. And like it wasn't like you're worthless, you should go. No, it didn't talk to me like that. It was just like today seems like a good day, and it was just like, wow, like I was just eating popcorn.
Yeah.
Like where did this come from?
That's scary.
It scares me. I meditated in the morning. I prayed last night. I went to a meeting last night. I live in a halfway house. I just celebrated 3 months yesterday.
Woo! 90 days! Yeah!
Everything is, I'm doing everything I need to do. You know what I mean? Like I'm balanced. I got a job. I work 3 hours a week. I got a home group. I got a sponsor. I got a commitment. And then it's just like,
Yep.
and it wasn't like I'm talking down to myself. Like I'm doing what I need to be doing. And it was just like, and I know I could have like really ran with it, because it started to, I'm like, who's gonna know?
You interrupted it.
You know, for a little bit I entertained it, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, I entertained it for a minute, you know? And I'm like, but I didn't entertain it that long, because here I am talking about it again, but it made me a little mad that I even had the thought about it for a little too long, and didn't wanna talk about it with my sponsor. Like,
How long you been using?
How long?
Like, give me a number.
Like over 10.
Over time, so so what you said, and this is a good example of self-defeating behaviors. I am mad at myself because I have 90 days, and how dare I allow my disease to trouble me and to make me think of that. You know what? You know why that happened? Because you're an addict. It's going to happen all the time. And the more spiritually fit we get, and the more that we go to our tools, open the toolbox, call your sponsor. Even if you tried to Jamie-ize it, I try to Susanize things. It's not good. And then you realize, okay, I got to do what's uncomfortable. I got to do what's against my nature, but I know I'll get through it. And you called your sponsor. Being her mom, did you have something to?
I was
Thank you, Jamie.
She called me and she's telling me about things that are going on in her home, in her so-called living house, and which is her home.
Oh.
And how well she's doing and plans that they're making for her future in her favor. And as her mother, when I hear that to me frightens me, because I believe that she thinks that she's not worthy of them, even though she's proud of them, and I'm super proud of them. But I always find when somebody gives her the confirmation that she is worthy and able to do it, that her old habits fall back, or the thoughts are there. So, yes. Not necessarily self-pity, but that self-doubt.
Yes.
Maybe it's the self-doubt. Maybe they think I'm worth it, but am I worth it? And I know she can, but I can't make her know.
Right.
She can only know it. So that's when you said that just now, that's right where my head went, like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope they're not telling her she can do too much, even though she can.
Well, you call your sponsor, you talk to your female network, you share about it maybe at women's meetings, because there's certain things that maybe you don't want to share at a co-ed meeting. Hey. But I'm really proud of you. I did this lecture today with just the addicted population, and I was working at a methadone clinic. I had a really challenging day, so I was going from brick to my home group in Freehold, and I was behind this chart, feeling very vulnerable, really restless, irritable, discontent, maybe hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and I was behind this truck that delivers Grey Goose vodka, and it said, "The greatest tasting vodka in the world." And that's how it spoke to me. It seduced me, Our disease, the devil's doing push-ups. When we're doing really well, like you are, and you're only in 90 days, you're still going through post-acute withdrawal and probably don't even realize it. So, but it seduces us. And so I was like, the greatest thing. And I was like, what the hell? And I've heard people talk about this, so I can identify with what you shared. Any, Eric, you too?
I just want to, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
I just want to say, I had 5 years clean before, and my disease, the devil, whatever you want to call it, I choose to call it the devil, will wait for the most perfect moment. And I was doing step work, I was fully involved in NA, I was on the convention committee, I did everything, H&I area, I was fully involved. There are many reasons why I relapsed, but I'm just coming back, I have like 9 months now, after an 8-year relapse. You would have 14 years clean out, blah, 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 blah. And thankfully, for the most part, my obsession has been lifted. For me, I think it is really important to have a higher power, whatever you choose to call that. It's super important to have. But I can identify too, because I had my first moment. For me, it's season changes and good times. So if I'm having a really good day, I was smoking a cigarette one night, and it was a weather change, a temperature drop. Just the slightest temperature drop reminded me of something, of a night I got high, and it doesn't take much, you know what I mean? But I think, you talk about it, and I'll talk about it for days and days. I don't really care until I hear the message I need to hear and get over it. But we are addicts, and it's going to happen. I don't care if you have 20-something years, you're gonna feel like that. It's a matter of how you handle it when you get that feeling. So you did the right thing. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. I relapsed after 7 years. I became a counselor, sponsored women. My kids started talking to me again, and I relapsed after 7 years. And so I can identify with that. Who had their hand up first? The young man. Okay. Go ahead, somebody.
I just want to tell, kind of related to the girls' goal.
Speak up.
I'm an ex-heroin, clean 48 years in December.
Woo!
Don't go there. I'll tell the girls that you're going to feel this way, and you're going to feel this way, especially when things are going good. I mean, that's when it's easy to perform, and you're going to get your flashbacks. I mean, back in my day, you cooked up using matches, and for years, every time I lit a match, you saw this.
Yeah.
I'd get a flashback. I mean, the longer you go on, the longer you stay clean, the less and less these get. And the more personal goals you achieve, the less and less these get. But tough it out. You can do this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very powerful. Yeah, that's all.
You guys, I love the clap. I love the appreciation for you guys. But it's not us that deserve the applause. It's the parents and the friends. Because they go through this trip with us. You know, and they're the ones that never get the, they're always, what I do wrong, what I don't. You didn't do anything wrong. You stayed. And you're here. No matter what you did going through, you're still here. So they deserve the applause, not us. We're putting them through hell.
You have a little insecurity there, so a little residual insecurity there, because you deserve it. You deserve it. And I agree with you at the same time, but you know what? You just, how powerful was that he just shared that? Look, I was 48 years, one day at a time. So, don't rob our joy.
I wanted to say to the young lady that you just spoke, and I think we were in a room together a couple of weeks ago. Did you lose a lot of weight?
I know, my hair's up.
I think you had said, and I can identify it with my own crisis, is that you said that when you first got clean, you felt like you were metamorphing to another person. You were just kind of like embracing the new you. And I have to share with you, I lost a child 2.5 years ago. So I'm coming out of a whole different, I'm coming into a new me where I couldn't smell the rain. I couldn't look at the stars. I hated birds. I hated everything. And so I worked on myself and it lifted. And now you're a new person. So now you have to challenge yourself. You have to, recovery is getting a new pet and loving it. Recovery is returning those phone calls. Recovery is going to the gym and doing that 10 more minutes on the treadmill. Recovery is just going out with your friends, sitting on the water, looking at the ducks. It's all those small things. And then, then we get bored, and then try to look for something else you can challenge yourself with. And if you look for it, it'll be there. So you're doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think we're going to be closing out on Facebook soon, but I just want to tie it up by, we defined it. We identified, the behaviors and the feelings that we can maybe recognize before we relapse or self-defeat ourselves into relapse or continue to enable our loved ones. And then we talked about the solutions. And again, I recommend Nar-Anon and Al-Anon. It's for the loved ones of the addicts and alcoholics. And I also recommend the Addicts Alcoholics Go. Hope Sheds Light, this organization is awesome. I'm so blessed to be a volunteer here. And then, what else was I going to say? If you need to go to self-help groups or maybe even see a counselor or psychologist or whatever you can do to make yourself healthier. Because you got to, everyone in this room, no matter what brought you here, you got to take care of you. Right? Thank you so much.